Record.
I think I just wrote to me. Pardon me, I'm going to use my voice.
They had to go to Vicky's house for her dog.
We are starting a meditation, so we'll let you in when we're ready for you.
Said Mommy.
It's I have to get into pitta mode to manage time when I'm not really a pitta, but I have to do that to manage time properly. Hi.
Everybody's on red alert around here.
It's also when I'm really, really tired, I just have to be otherwise I just kind of dissolve into the ethers, and that's no good for your learning if I do that. So I tend to get almost hyper-focused. What we'll start this afternoon with is a meditation called Kirtan Kriya. It is in here. I don't know if you need this right now, but in case you do, so when we go to...
Subtle body? Would it be subtle body?
No. Just give me a second. If you go to Yoga for Mental and Emotional Well-Being, it is, gosh. So you'll see a grid on the first page, then more grids. You'll come to a page where you see a guy doing what we did this morning, the Brahmari, and it is just on the page right next to that. This is a meditation practice from Kundalini, and it has been studied more than any one particular meditation ever. A lot of times researchers will just study a kind of meditation and then move on. There is a man who is a Kundalini teacher, and he's a doctor, and I can't think of his name, and I'm sorry, but it does have, if you turn to the next page, it gives the link to his website, alzheimersprevention.org. He's done 20 years of research on this meditation. It has been shown to help with memory, with all kinds of mental and cognitive functioning, not just Alzheimer's. It helps with anxiety, depression. It helps to lengthen telomeres, so that helps with the aging process and within the mind as well. So we won't go into it a lot now. I'm just giving you this because it will come up tomorrow as one of the things you might give to a client, and I wanted to give you an experience with it. So for this one, there are several things that happen with it. And as you're learning it, it's best to try to do as many of the things as possible, because when he's done the research, if he takes away one element of it, it's not as effective. For what it's like this synergistic thing where all of the elements support each other. And so that's why it is a little intricate. If you don't totally get it today, you can do it at your leisure and practice it later. It can be cut down into intervals, so I'll explain that in a minute. Kirtan Kriya, it says sit up tall, look at the third eye, right? You're only going to do that so as much as it doesn't give you like a headache or a jaw ache. Now, if you're getting that, just don't do that part, right? You will, and I'll explain all of this because it takes a minute. As we're doing this, we're going to be doing a chant Satanama, which is, have you heard Satnam in Kundalini? It's just the syllables of that broken down. And Satnam, Sat is truth, Nam is identity. They use Gurmukhi, not Sanskrit, but the two are related as far as languages go, and it means Sat is truth, and Nam is identity, so truth is my identity. And it is really their sacred kind of chant that they use a lot.
They're bad.
They can sneak in.
Okay.
Tell them to sneak in.
Yeah, they saw a sign and I think they...
Well, I sent them. So, Satanama is said, Mika, we had to move you over there so we could get this on here. Sa is said while we touch the pointer finger to the thumb. Ta, middle finger. Na, third finger. And ma. Ma, yeah, is pinky finger. I don't remember what each of these mean in Kundalini, but if you decide to watch the practice video that I gave you a link you can type in and do this along with, she explains it. I can't remember what it is. So we are looking up at the third eye, saying sa, and it goes like this: Satanama, Satanama. Join me on this one. Satanama. Good. Thank you. I just wanted you to get a feel for that. It is done out loud in your normal voice, called the human voice, for the first 2 minutes. You will then hear, I'm going to set insight timer, and you'll hear a bell go off. Whatever one we're all on together, we'll finish that one, and then we'll go into a whisper for 2 minutes. That's called, in Kundalini, the angelic voice, voice of the angels. And then the bell will go off, we'll finish wherever we're at, we'll finish it. And then we'll do that silently for 4 minutes. Bell will go off, we'll do 2 minutes whisper, and then 2 minutes out loud. And then we'll sit in silence for a minute. Now, the other part, and this part has been researched, he's also experimented with different visualizations, and none of them get the same results as this one. So, as you're doing each syllable, you will be seeing an L shape coming from the crown of your head and exiting, creating like a right angle somewhere in the middle of your noggin, and exiting out the third eye. And it's just an L of light. And so it's like sa, ta, na, ma. You might, how we visualize things is unique to us. You might actually feel it from within. You might be someone who sees yourself from the outside and sees it happening. You might be like, I cannot get this to happen. And you just, again, it's kind of like when you close your eyes, you know, if you've seen the bolster, you know the bolster's there. Just trust that you're seeing it, even if you're like, but I don't see it. Just do your best. Sound good?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so coming up to a comfortable seated position. I am going to pull up the correct meditation on the insight timer. I was proud of myself for remembering to use insight timer for this. Okay, so before I hit start, I will try to set the pace. It's normal for it to kind of speed up, but if we start going really fast, you're going to hear me get a little louder than everyone. Yeah. Questions? Please. Yes.
Oh, sorry. So the Satanama, that's all on the exhale, and then we'll take one inhale together, and then we'll start
Yes.
over again.
Yeah.
Okay. So it'll be rhythmic though, like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And if you need to take a breath somewhere else in there, that's okay too. Do what you need to do, but in general, yes.
She's popping over
Sorry.
Creaking and cracking.
Gotta get ready for the meditation.
All right. Nice long spine. Close your eyes. Let's take a breath in together. Let it go from your mouth. One more time in. Let it go. And we'll get ready to start. Satanama, 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 Satanama. Satanama, 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 Satanama. Keep going. Satanama, looking up at the third eye point. Satanama, Satanama, seeing that L for each syllable. Satanama, 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 Now silently for 4 minutes, continuing those sounds within your mind, trying not to let yourself speed up too much. Pressing the fingertips for each syllable. Keep the spine long. So this is just done internally without moving the mouth. Satanama, 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 Satanama. Inhale. Engage Mula Bandha, Uddiyana Bandha, and a light throat or chin lock. Hold it here. Gaze up at the third eye. And release. Keep the eyes closed. And just take a moment to notice, without judgment. Sit back and observe. How are you different than you were 12 minutes ago? Bring the palms together at the heart center and just rub the palms to stimulate the nervous system here and kind of wake us up and bring us back into the room. Start to flutter your eyes open. Maybe put a smile on your face. Good job. I don't know why I'm not emotionally teary-eyed, but I'm teary-eyed. How are you doing? What's your time? What did you notice? And there's no right or wrong.
The whispers after being silenced were very loud at first. Like it was good. It was good loud, but it felt loud. Yeah.
That was really cool that it seemed like so many people started out at the same time when we started whispering again. Like we're all on the same beat still.
Yeah, it felt very connected, I thought. There. It's a fun one to do together as a group.
When I got silent, I had a hard time seeing the L. And I felt like whenever I went from talking to whispering the first time, I had to like reconnect to that L too. But then being silent was harder to see it. Yeah.
Yeah, good, thank you. What else, Rachel?
I didn't quite see an L. I did it like at the beginning slightly, the way that you had described, but then it turned into like a J, and it just kept being a J shape instead of an L shape. So
Yeah.
so I try not to force it. I just wanted to just let it happen.
Over time, bend in a little.
Yeah.
Yeah, good.
I got warm. I don't know about anyone
I did
else.
too. Especially when we came back out of the silence and started
Yes.
whispering again, I was like,
And the room was vibrating, I was feeling that too. I think that was maybe what makes it warm.
is that what time travel feels like?
I'm gonna let you forget that.
I know, I'm sorry, we just stick to the same old joke over and over around here.
That was calming though. It was really like settling.
Yes.
If that makes sense. Like you can I can feel myself just like sitting,
Yeah.
Grounding.
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 Yeah, really nice. But I saw colors with the L. It's like like these.
Did you?
I always see colors when I meditate. It's just like the weirdest thing, and they're different. Sometimes they stay the same for like a really long time, and then sometimes they change. This time it was just like purple, like where the L went like this, and that point it would just be like, and they're lava lamp, like bubbles is what they swear. And it is. It's so cool. It's like whoa, yeah. So yeah, and it was just like purple, like bloop, bloop. It was like really cool. It was really nice.
Cool. Thank you for sharing. I'm glad you got that groundedness from it too. What else? I heard something over here.
Yeah, it felt really grounding. Instead of the L, I like just happened to visualize like the Satanama, like the words, and like the A was like where we were supposed to be gazing. It was like right through it, so that was kind of cool. Yeah, but it was really calming. Yeah, the first two like rounds felt really long, and then once we started doing it silently, it was like, okay, this is nice. Like, and then it kind of went by faster.
Yeah, okay, good, thanks. Did you have something?
Yeah, my third eye was very bright, and then at one point I had literally a green eye. It was really weird. It went away very fast, but it was cool.
Cool, we're producing visions. It is so interesting because it works for both anxiety and depression. And I feel like when we experience it, we can understand why, because it has a grounding effect, but it also brings a certain clarity and lightness to it. Can any of you kind of feel that a little bit lighter from it? But whereas, anxiety kind of has this
Heaviness.
and like stiffness and rigidness to it. It's yeah, exactly. It's tension. So we will talk more about that tomorrow. But I did want to go over that today is where we had time scheduled for it. So I was on my pitta. I was telling them I have to do pitta this afternoon. But just so you know, for your purposes in working with someone, a lot of people can't sit for 12 minutes and do something like this. You can cut this down proportionately. So you could do 1, 1, 2, 1, 1 for the minutes. If someone has like early stages Alzheimer's and you were working with them, you might do even really short increments. Generally though, that's not who you will be working with, but you can go you can go to as small of an increment as time as you need to, so long as you have that 1 to 2, 1 to 1 kind of ratio going on. And I just would really encourage you to check out that website, because it's just cool that they've done. I mean, to think someone's studied one meditation for so many years, and it must be more than 20 now, because I learned this from Shanti in, I believe, 2014. So I guess we're maybe 25 years. I don't know. So, Kirtan Kriya. All right. So here's our overview for the afternoon. We have subtle body discussion and learning to do. And the purpose of that is to set you up for the learning tomorrow of how to work with you. You can yawn all you need. It's good. It brings more oxygen in your brain. It can even help. They've done studies like if you rub right here, it helps to circulate more blood there and behind there. The carotid artery goes up back behind there, and you'll get even more oxygen while you yawn a few.
No wonder I'll yawn and I'll go with this.
Yeah, so yeah, don't worry about yawning. I yawn when I do mantra all the time, and I'm always like, well.
You know what they say when you yawn and when your eyes tear when you're meditating and doing things like that's the releasing of negative energy, and that's how it's coming out.
Oh.
Is not in like a really wild state, but in this very calming way. It's just escaping and it's just leaving you. Yeah.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. So anyhow, we will be learning about the subtle body, because in yoga we are going to be doing obviously these private sessions with people, because yoga can be a tool for healing. Now, it's not a tool for us to heal people. In yoga, the belief is for people to heal themselves, or to receive whatever healing it is that they need. And of course, it's never for us to judge and be like, well, if you would just do more Kirtan Kriya, you wouldn't have A, B, or C, right? It's like, we don't know what someone's karma or dharma is. All we are here to do is say, hey, this can be really powerful. Give it a try. And it has helped a lot of people with ease some of their suffering, right? The thing about yoga that is different than the West that I imagine you know is it's a holistic view of the person. So we're not going to go in for, like this month we're doing yoga for mental and emotional well-being, but we're still looking at the whole person. We're still going to be looking at what's going on physically, what's going on in all of their layers of being. Just as when you are working on it for physical well-being, you're still looking at all of those layers. Because really in yoga, it is a belief that if one layer of who we are is affected, they all are. And so we're not going to dig out the roots of dis-ease, which by that I just mean suffering, I don't mean disease, by just doing kind of surface level stuff. It will just pop back up in some other way, shape, or form. So we'll be looking at subtle body today so that then tomorrow you'll have an understanding of exactly how we look at the different layers of a person in order to support their healing through yoga. Sound good?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it's going to be Mika's favorite afternoon.
Super
She's
stoked.
like, yes, subtle body all afternoon. Yeah, so that's the plan for today. We'll do koshas. We will do this until 3:15. And so because I have to keep a tight schedule, if there's a question or a great comment that you have, but it's a little too off topic or it's something we're gonna get to tomorrow, I'll just tell you that. But know this, that as always, there's always a parking lot, right? And so if we can't discuss a question that you had today, you can always post it on Facebook and tag me, and I will respond to that. It's never like me being like, well, that's a stupid question, or that question doesn't matter. It does matter, or you wouldn't ask it. So, here we go. Let's do this thing. Go to subtle body. And you have the classical chakras. Hi, chakras. The classical chakra attributes, by the way, I don't know if Austin told you this, but they don't have the standard colors, and that's why you're not visualizing color in your Shakti meditation yet. Don't worry about that right now, but just while we're there. Vayus. Go past Vayus, we'll get to that this afternoon. And I'm sorry that it's a little off. Punch in my Akosha model is not, it doesn't say it where it should say it. It should be at the top of this page with all the circles, but that's okay. So right now we'll spend about an hour talking about the Pancha Maya Kosha model, which is a mouthful. Let's break down these words first, shall we? So Pancha, if you've done Ashtanga, you might know what that means. Has anyone heard that word before? You can't quite. I know, you're like, I don't know. So much Sanskrit. Pancha means 5. Maya. Who's heard that one? I bet you've all heard it, even if you're not sure what it means exactly. Does anyone want to say what you think it means or what you've heard it means?
Elements?
I'm sorry,
Elements?
Elements?
Gunas are elements.
Gunas.
Yes! Good thinking, though.
Thank you.
I love that you just said that. Maya is illusion. And illusion is different in the yoga model than the Buddhist model. And we've mentioned this before with the sutras the first month. But just so you know, it doesn't mean that when we start talking about like the layer of the body that is this one, it doesn't mean this doesn't exist. The illusion is not that it exists in yoga. The illusion is you thinking you are this and only this, right? Kosha is sheath. or sometimes translated as body.
Kosha
I lost my notes.
is
didn't I?
body.
Sheath.
Sheath. Yeah.
What are you looking for?
Oh, Amanda handed me my notes that I had lost earlier, and I lost them again.
Oh, man.
Are they behind that thing?
No.
It's not the pile, right?
It is. That's where I wrote it. Thank you. See, I need all the support I can get.
I was like, I know this looks. Here, wait. Can I take the one off, or do you need
Oh
this?
no, I need it all. I just
okay.
wrote. It needs to be this thing. I need to retype it. I write new notes on it every year, and it's just become a mess. So this is the Panchamaya Kosha model. It was first talked about in the Taittiriya Upanishad about 3,000 years ago-ish, maybe a little less, maybe a little more. And it is where we first have written down where the yogis are like, okay, here are the layers of who you are, and you are, and you are, and we all have these layers. Now, they're drawn kind of like this to show the different layers, but they're not actually like the Russian stacking dolls, right? Like, they're actually like this. This is just a model that helps us get our minds around it. And we'll start for our discussion right now with this most dense layer called Annamaya Kosha, and you'll see right under that it says Annamaya Kosha, and we have the translation, which is the food sheath, and that's because this needs food, right? And also someday this goes back to the earth in some way, shape, or form, and becomes food, even if it's just the molecules and everything broken down. This one can get a little mixed up with the next one. Some people say this one is literally just 4 parts. It's legs, torso, head, and arms. Other than that, it's and the things in it, but just the physical. This one without the next layer, the pranamaya kosha, this one would just be a slab of meat.
What were the sections? I'm sorry.
Head, torso, arms, and legs. This layer or sheath or body gives us stability. Makes sense, right? It's what holds us in this world so that we can have experiences and work through our karmas. And so now, there are some people who say, well, there's no kind of yoga that actually works on this because this in and of itself, it is really just, the way this feels really just has to do with the pranamaya, which we'll get to. However, we're not going to split hairs on it. It's also just as commonly said that we do asana for it. And that makes sense, right? You have a hard time sitting because your hips hurt, so you do some asana and then you can sit. Or, you know, we move the body to affect how the body feels. Now, that will also impact these. So it's not to say asana only impacts Annamaya. It's just to say that's usually when we're looking at, okay, this person's elbow hurts. Well, okay, what asana might help that layer of being? What then, so just knowing this about it, what do you suppose are some signs of health and or dis-ease in it? And so I don't mean disease, like, I mean, we could name physical diseases for the next 10 months and not be done. So I don't mean, we're not going to go into each one, but what are some broad strokes? What does Anamaya look like when it's balanced and healthy versus when it's not? What might we see?
So when your Anamaya kosha is healthy, maybe you're more physically active or more able to be physically active, and when it's unhealthy, maybe you're more tense and rigid.
Yeah, I would say so. And that can also lead into this one a little, our energy body. But again, these two are really wound up with each other.
Could it be something as simple as like clear skin?
Yeah.
Oh.
Sure.
Wow.
What else?
Digestion.
Yes, and also no.
No.
um,
There's another.
it will. All of the body's symptoms or systems are said to be of the pranamaya kosha.
So it's more like appearance.
It's this might be like your arm's broken.
Joint issues.
So it can be pain.
Pain.
Think pain.
The inflammation.
Um, probably. Yeah, and that's probably also. I mean, the truth is, any of these, the one under it's going to be deeply impacting it as well.
So this has nothing to do with food. I'm a little confused because
Your physical body
you need food.
is.
Food. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So like anorexia wouldn't hit like obesity.
Well, here's a good example of why we want to look at all the layers. So if someone were anorexic, we would say, well, really that's probably mostly coming from these layers that have to do more with the mind.
Mhm.
Even deeper than that, a disconnection from the big S self.
Right.
But then it manifests as low energy and thinness that means the organs can't necessarily support life. So anorexia is actually a great example of how we have
All layers working together.
all of them. Yeah, we're not just
Okay.
going to be like, oh, eat more. You
Right.
know? Which I know you're not saying that, but
Right.
that's the case for everything. So even when we see, like arthritis, right, and it's, achy joints, we're not just going to be like, oh, do this for this body. We're going to go, we're going to go deeper. We always assume that all layers are impacted. So right now we're just talking kind of the broad brush strokes. In general, Anamaya kosha, when it is healthy, there is a feeling of lightness and an ability to withstand change. So like, just almost like a level of endurance. You know, if someone, I'm reading a historic, I like historical fiction lately. I don't know what this is. It's a new thing with me. But again and again in these books, people who have suffered some kind of privation, like they're starving because of a potato famine or whatever the case might be, then when they get sick, they can't withstand that change and they die. Whereas if they hadn't been nearly starved, they could handle the flu or a cold or strep throat. So there's just a solidness to it and hardiness to us when Anamaya is healthy. And it is, while I say strong, it's also supple, and that's where you were saying kind of some, I think it was you, right, rigidity?
Yeah, rigid.
Yeah, it'd be, there, when it's healthy, there's some suppleness to it, right? We might see actual rigidity in that.
What's rigidity? What's definition of rigidity?
Like stiffness almost?
Stiff.
Stiff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hard to move.
Mm.
I I appreciate the definitions. We can't find
Like,
another reason,
like-
but
Yeah, I don't even know.
Yeah.
Connotation against it.
Yeah, but we're not getting into the mind right now. So I would just say it's a physical rigidity that, yeah, because I do think so, but I think usually it's because it involves this layer, right?
Yeah.
So that's, we won't spend a ton of time talking about signs of health and disease with Anamaya because I think we'll go deeper with Pranamaya, Kosha, the next one. But when we are looking at someone or talking to someone, or even ourselves, because part of this, learning to work with a private client, is so you can look at your own life and be like, how can I be healthier and happier and freer in my life? And so these are questions we might ask to assess health of this layer of being. Well, based on what you know, what might you ask someone?
I was gonna ask a question with this. Does it have anything to do, Anamaya, like with Ayurveda? Like you can look at someone and see like kind of like their shape or like how if their face is round, their eyes are supple.
Ayurveda is based on this,
Yeah.
but this isn't based on Ayurveda.
Ayurveda came after.
Yeah, and it would. So I mean, they work together.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good question. Yeah.
some questions you ask, maybe a broad question would be like, what does your practice look like now? Or like, how do you feel about your practice?
Right. So if we're looking at someone who practices yoga, we might be like, hey, what's your asana practice look like?
If they don't practice yoga, would it be just what's their physical activity, like
Might look at a physical activity.
what's your day-to-day physical activity?
Mm-hmm.
Are you in any pain?
That's the big one. Right
Okay.
there.
I just didn't know if that would go to more of into the mental question of
Which one, pain or
the pain.
daily life?
But this is physical, like, aren't we just talking about physical?
Right, but for them, they don't know that we're
Oh, the difference?
assessing
Gotcha.
their physical side. Because if I were to ask someone, "Are you in pain?" they might go on to into this rabbit hole of why they're in pain.
Well, but your intake form asks it too.
Mm.
So, and we'll talk more about how to do that tomorrow. But there will be things where you don't see a clear answer, so you would ask this or you keep it in mind when you meet with them. And then there's going to be things where it's just clearly stated on the intake form.
Right.
Yeah, good point. One that's on your intake form, it's something like this, but are there actions or activities that increase or decrease the pain or discomfort?
What reduces the pain, and there's another one that says what increases it.
Yeah, exactly. So that is one where we're looking at, okay, how's Anamaya doing here? Sometimes when we are looking at, so with this upcoming module, they're meeting with us because they have something going on in their mind and their heart that they want to work on. But we still are like, well, how does this feel in your body, right? Because we know that even if something's happening in our mind, the mind level, which is, by the way, when I say happening in our mind, I'm not saying it doesn't make it real. Like, I'm not saying it's just in your mind, hi. They're not imagining it. But when it's happening in the mind level, there's still going to be physical stuff that comes up with it. And we'll get into that more tomorrow too. Anything else on this one? As far as the questions that we might ask or mentally be assessing as we talk to them.
I'm just looking through the questionnaire, where do you hold tension in your body? That might be part of that.
Yes,
thing
yes.
as well.
Where you hold tension in your body definitely is telling us
A lot.
yeah, how the mind and the body are talking to each other, really. Okay, so RX, if we're giving a little yoga RX for someone, and it has, and there is definitely a physical element, we're going to assume there always will be a physical element, but some will focus more than others. What is the prescription for Anamaya? What do we give? Asana. Good. Give me the main sign of disease. Pain. Good. And give me at least one question.
Where do you hold tension?
Good. All right. So before we move on, what questions do you have about Anamaya Kosha? Yeah. Okay. You're taking it easy on me this afternoon. Huh?
Well, we'll see
Just
what,
wait.
how the next.
You're like, oh, we're waiting. So the next one is, as I mentioned, called the Pranamaya Kosha. Prana, you've heard that word, right? Prana is life force or vital energy. So this is the energy body, sometimes called the vital energy body. As an aside, this is where the subtle body lives. So this is the energetic body that delivers prana through our physical body. So it's what's really connecting the mind with the physical, with this. So here we have chakras, nadis, all of that good stuff. This layer gives us vitality. This layer brings our bodies to life. So it's making the digestive system work. It may not be the organs of the digestive system, but it is the energy that drives and tells it what to do. It's almost like the body's innate intelligence, right? That's what that is. And that is with all systems of the body. And you might have looked already, but I bet you could guess what would be something that would support this system. Breath. Breath, yeah. What did you say?
Digestive system?
I guess maybe what yoga practices will support this.
Which makes
Meditation.
sense.
Pranayama meditation.
Pranayama, yeah. Asana, again, because it's just so linked with the physical body. And we know when we do certain asanas, they give us vitality and energy, whereas some, when we have too much rattling through us, calm it down. So obviously then we say asana for this one as well. Meditation for this one as well, because ultimately meditation is a way to push prana through the body, right? I mean, that's what we're doing in our Shakti meditation, is working on moving prana up that mid-channel of the body. So we're working directly on that body right there.
Would the bonders play a part in this?
Yeah. Yeah, very good. They would. I should add that to my notes, so I have that for next year. So, when pranamaya is either healthy or not healthy, what might it look like in the individual?
Bad breathing.
Problem
Say that
sleeping?
again?
Like healthy or, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
no, what you just said. I don't want healthy.
Oh, I said low energy.
Low energy.
Okay.
Right?
Lethargic.
Lethargic. I heard.
Dark eye circles sometimes.
Yeah, that'd be a way. That's the Anamaya symptom of this, not
Not
the
natural.
vitality. Yeah, very good. And I heard Scott say insomnia.
Trouble sleeping?
Yeah. Either sleeping, needing.
More or too much?
Yeah.
What about
Fatigue.
like if this is the energy that pushes our systems, is that right? No.
Mhm.
Yes, we are on that. Okay. Like constipation.
Mhm.
Is that?
Yeah, so when the system isn't working right, it is in yoga thought, it's not that it's not that the intestines themselves are wrong, it's that the system that governs the intestines needs support.
Like low blood pressure too, and
Healthy organ function.
yeah.
Yeah, so, and again, this is where it gets a little confusing, because it's like, well, the organ exists in anamaya, because it's physical. However, what makes that organ work, what gives the intelligence to the cells within the organ, and what gives that organ life, is pranamaya. So, yeah, they get tangled, yes.
Thyroid issues would be on this as well.
Yeah. Any any disease. Yeah. I would say
Physical.
just about. I mean, unless, but here's the deal. So if I fall and break my arm, it actually started here. But because I'm taking painkillers that make me sleepy, then it will go in this way. So that's not necessarily an inside out one, but there are most that show up in the body are starting at deeper levels and can really, I don't know, look at that vitality body. Yeah.
What about depression?
Mm.
Would that be this one, or that encompasses kind of all of them?
It's going to be all of them. Yeah, it really is one that is here, but also here, and also here, and also here.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
each and every single one.
And it's like a lot of those, that is the thing about these, when we're talking about ways in which we suffer emotionally, mentally, with brain chemistry or however we want to call that thing, psychologically, those are really solid examples of how it impacts every level, for sure. I mean, even if it's as simple as with depression, you see it physically, because I can see this in a person, right?
So this they're just putting it in 5 different categories.
Yes.
Is all they're doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just to like give you a starting point. But technically, you really need to hit pretty much all 5 in order to make somebody healthy, or to get healthy, I should say.
By and large, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, we're almost always assuming that suffering comes from forgetting who we really are, and that then it causes problems that the further out the problems are, the longer they've been there and the deeper dwelling that, it's like, wow. Whereas when it's just something that's showing up only in the mind and we're not seeing it as much out here, it's probably not as long-standing and can be addressed sooner, just like. That said, almost everything will show up on all levels, and that's why we holistically look at a person. Yeah, Rachel.
So I might be like really off base here, but the kriyas that we do, or the, I think it's a kriya, yes, the kriya that we did, or that we've been practicing, that's meant to like cleanse the body in different places and get the secretions out in the small places. Is that like related to this?
Mhm.
Like, are these?
So kriya is going to be here and here. Because we're doing purification, we are purifying the energy channels, right? But we're also physically trying to move things through the body.
If you had a private client that had some more severe issues in these 2 departments, would you work on kriyas with them? Like that would be sort of something to help that, or?
Possibly.
Okay.
It'll just depend on the client and on, what's going on.
Would creativity and enjoyable hobbies be the healthy side of this?
It would be, no, it can be. I mean, some of that's in here because the chakras are here, It is, but the chakra isn't responsible for creativity. The chakra is responsible for getting creativity from the deeper layers of yourself into the mind and the body and expressed. So, not exactly. I would put that more in these here.
What about enjoying recreations? So like if you're
I think the word enjoyment is what's, I don't think that fits.
It's high energy.
This is about, I mean, to some extent, yes, because if you have no energy, you're not going to enjoy stuff. But when I'm talking about, if I'm looking at a symptom and I have to pick one layer for it, when I look at a lack of enjoyment of activity, yes, I want to adjust all 5 layers, but what's the main layer? And just like if we look at a asana, I might say, well, what is the main muscle being strengthened in Warrior 2? Well, yeah, granted, we're doing a little bit with the shoulders, the arms, even in the hands, but probably that's not going to be the main one. Does that make sense?
So what would a healthy Maya Kosha look like? Like what would be the definition? High energy or good energy?
Well, I don't know about high. It'd be vitality.
Vitality.
Balanced energy. Yeah.
Balanced energy, okay.
Also, you're going to see healthy systems in the body. So, menstrual cycle, digestive system, sleep cycle. So cycles as well. The whole circadian rhythm, which isn't just your sleep, it's when you eat. It's when there's so much to the circadian rhythm, but that is very much pranamaya.
How does it tie into like the chakras and having this balanced and that balanced?
We're not going to do that today, but we'll get a little more into it when we get into Vayus. So we kind of will do it today. Yeah.
Would hormones, like good balanced hormone, would be under this category?
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, you know what it's like if you have suffered from PMS. You feel it physically, but you also
Guys
know.
have cycles too. We do.
Yeah, you do. It's true. Hormonal cycles, you have physical symptoms, but you feel them on this vital level where you're just like, I can't think straight. I'm drained, and also I might kill someone. But I'm too tired to. You know, like you just feel these deeper layers. Yeah. So there's kind of a glow to people when they're pranamaya kosha. It's just kind of that they've got vitality.
Would this be like where auras come into play?
Well, the aura is part of the subtle body, so yes. Yep. For people who believe, not all yogis believe the auric field exists.
No, I'm just for
But some
conversation's
do.
sake.
Yeah, that would be this. That's part of the subtle body. In this, in Kundalini, it's a little different. So, knowing that it has to do with vitality, energy, endurance also, right? Like you can do certain things for a while without then needing to go sleep for 10 hours. Knowing this, what might you be looking at either on your intake form or as you talk to them? What are some questions you'll be looking at? I'll start with Mika here.
What are your sleep habits like?
Yeah, absolutely. Sleep habit might be the biggest one. It is a major indicator of what's happening with pranamaya.
Asking if there's any overactive or underactive thyroid issues. That actually has a lot to do with like hormone imbalances and all that stuff as well. So I think that asking that one question can tell you a lot more than just that answer. You know what I'm saying?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, and that's part of where, in the intake form, like if
Ladies. significant health issues.
You have to be a little, we'll talk more about how to ask questions like that tomorrow without sounding like you're diagnosing. Well, because we have to walk a line where we are not diagnosing, we're going, okay, what am I seeing? So it might be, but you might ask, for instance, a female who is still having her period, like what is your menstrual cycle like? Rather than, do you have hormone problems or something like that? Might work better. We'll talk more about why tomorrow. I think Scott had one and then Amanda.
No, I was
She
just
got it?
rephrasing Mika's, yeah.
Okay.
What's your energy level like?
Energy level. Make a note that can be tricky because some people think they're high energy and they are the same people who drink 10 cups of coffee a day.
How about asking like what their daily activities are?
Are you supplementing your energy?
Yes. Are you supplementing your energy? But also, this is why we want to know. We're not dietitians, but what do you eat? If you are eating 10 Twinkies for dinner at night and you feel like crap, there's a chance those Twinkies are impacting your pranamaya kosha, right? And so routine, as much as sleep routine, all of these routines impact pranamaya kosha.
We need to ask about like caffeine and alcohol as well.
Alcohol can get, well, we do, I think, have it on, I don't know if it's on that one, but it's on one of them. You can
Is
ask.
that inappropriate? Or
Well,
is
no, you just have to, again, be careful how you phrase it, but it might be one where you say, okay, and how many glasses a week or a day do you have? Just assuming they do, so then they're free. Instead of, do you drink? Do, but we have to be careful because people come in thinking yoga people are like perfect and pure and I said angelic. Yeah, like and they might try to hide some of the truth that could keep us from really giving them what they need. Yeah.
So, since we live in Colorado, would cannabis consumption be another one of those questions we would want?
On the other end, if
Yeah.
someone's like, I'm so tired all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, and even prescription medicines can impact that, and we'll talk about this more tomorrow. I will just say, we're not trying to ever say to anyone, I'm going to get you off your meds. And if someone says, hey, I want to get off my meds, we just go, well, hey, I'm going to give you some tools that will support your healing, and you talk about that with your doctor. Because the truth is, Western medicine's a wonderful thing. We can get very snobby about it in the yoga community because there's also some very horrible things about Western medicine. However, there are plenty of people who are alive because of Western medicine who wouldn't be otherwise. So, we have to really check our own attitudes about that when we talk to people.
I would say it's there's a time and place for modern medicine. Like if I break my leg, I don't want someone rubbing oregano oil on the I want someone to do
We
surgery
wouldn't use
on me.
oregano.
Yeah.
We would use helichrysum,
Oh,
please.
see, whatever, you know.
You got the wrong oil.
See, I can't get the right oil.
At least lavender.
All right.
Yeah,
Ask
lavender.
them about their cycles on this one too.
I would. Especially if you're just hearing things that suspect and make you kind of wonder. Here's something just for you to note. When you are assigning breath work to them, you need to watch the breath work. Like we talked about today, you probably, I don't know if you give anyone Kapalabhati, but you might give people belly breathing. Oh my gosh, it is amazing how many people do belly breathing and really think that this is belly breathing. And you can be like, put your hand on your belly, and they're going, and you have to watch, like, are the shoulders going up? Is this actually a chest breath? Because I don't want to induce anxiety when I'm trying to calm someone with belly breathing. And so, because this is the layer we're going to give pranayama for, and our many little sadhanas that we give them, we want to watch what they're doing. Just like we wouldn't be like, so triangle looks like this, go home and do it. And they've never done triangle, right? Same thing. Yeah. I'm going to move on for the sake of time to the next one. We will get into all of these more tomorrow as well. Monomaya kosha. This is the mind sheath. Mono or manas is mind.
What is a sheath? Am I weird that I don't know what that is?
A sheath is like a layer. It's a layer.
It's kind of like an insulation over the bottom.
Oh.
Yeah, that's a good example.
Right?
Or
Um,
like when they holster their knife.
Like a
That's
sword sheath. And also, I heard that like vagina, the word vagina comes from sheath.
Oh.
It might be. I mean,
I can see that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to sidetrack. I just
Okay, yes.
Okay, so this is, remember when we talk about the mind sheath, we are talking about the mental and emotional body. I didn't write here, but this is also, that includes the subconscious mind. So mind, when we're talking yoga, chitta, right? Or manas, those are almost simultaneous, not exactly both us, we're going to do that. That's what we're talking about. When this supports clarity, right? Clear thinking in life. The number one little yoga RX for it is chanting. I want to give you a couple of others to write down though. Who remembers what pratyahara is?
Withdrawal of the senses.
You're on it this afternoon. In the subtle body talk. I'm proud of you.
It was a guess, it was a guess.
I was, yeah, right. I'm really specifically
waiting for
right
you
on
to ask that
that. Yeah. So sense withdrawal, but also remember that anything we take in through our senses is important all of the time. So it's not just sense withdrawal, but what are we taking in through our senses? So if my mind is troubled at night and I'm having nightmares all night and I come to Janine and she's like, what are you watching before bed? And I'm like, Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3.
Whoa, you just read my mind. Weird. I gotta say that movie. That's
Were
so
you really? Because I
yeah.
couldn't think of one and I kind of went like this.
Yeah.
I
I threw it up there for you.
have some funny stories. Anyhow. That would be a sidetrack. But this is one where we're like, what is the person taking in through their senses? Right? And so pratyahara is sense withdrawal. Sometimes that doesn't mean closing your eyes. It means not taking in the sights and sounds of a horror movie because that affects your mind. Right? Same with what do you take in through the sense of taste? Well, you know, if eating certain kinds of food give you indigestion and indigestion leaves you pissed off and angry, that also is affecting your mind. Do not interrupt. So what then are some signs of health and disease?
So indecisible.
Yeah, indecision. Yeah, right, which is kind of the opposite of clarity, right?
So wait, sorry, that was the healthy or the unhealthy? Unhealthy was indecisive. Okay. Fidgeting?
Oh, that might be how it shows up. Yeah, but it'd be a symptom of what? What's the mind doing if the body's fidgeting?
Restless.
Yeah, gritty, restlessness, yeah.
Is this where like mental diseases show up?
Yes, and they go deeper, but this is one of the main ones where we will look at this.
Would healthy be motivated? Someone who is motivated? And I know it's clarity, but
It could be, yeah. Yeah, I would say so. There's a certain amount of motivation. Because the opposite, here's a big sign that there are things going on here, is fear. Often when we're not motivated, it's because we are afraid, because we're believing those subconscious patterns of, I'm not worthy of success, most of us self-sabotage without ever even knowing we self-sabotage. We hear this phrase and we're like, what kind of loser would self-sabotage? And then, but it's like most of us truly, really do.
Would anger be under here too?
I'm sorry?
Anger?
Here's what would be under there. Inappropriate emotional responses.
Okay. And logic too, is that?
Logic, good logic would be under here, yeah. Whereas if it's not healthy, it's going to be,
The inappropriate
yeah, and just illogical.
Wait, what did you say the healthy thing was before then?
Logic, good logic.
Good
Oh,
logic.
yeah.
There can be an over-reliance on logic in life too, but just kind of a healthy relationship with logic. You're going to see a certain amount of habits. Habits tend to start here, or deeper. The next two really weave together, much like pranamaya and anamaya. These two kind of weave together. But you will see, just in general, pretty good or bad patterns, because the way we think shows what we do in life. Right? We talked about that last night. Our thoughts determine our actions. And so that means habits, that means relationship stuff. If someone is continuously a victim in their relationships, well, we're going to look at Manamaya Kosha. If someone is continuously, whatever it is, pushing people away, basically, we're just saying, in general, a healthy, and by the way, we're all healthy and unhealthy in all of these. So don't listen to this and be like, oh my gosh, I'm so screwed.
When we are working on these things though, do we start from the inside and go out?
We'll get to that tomorrow.
Okay.
So you're looking at, when I say balanced emotional expressions, on one side that's not healthy, we have suppression or repression. On the other side, we have like going into a rage on someone for like accidentally stepping on your toe or something, or spilling the milk. And then we have like someone who's like, wow, I'd like to talk to you about that, because that, I want to understand where you're coming from, right? Like, I felt angry is a lot different than like throwing the milk jug at someone's head. Or just holding it in and being like, every morning he spills milk. Yeah, it's fine, it's okay.
Could indifference be this too? Could it be on the opposite extreme? So instead of displaying major emotional outbursts, displaying almost no emotional outbursts whatsoever?
numbness.
Yeah, and I think that has a lot to do with that repression, but it can look like indifference.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
Would anxiety go under this category too?
Stress. So as we get into questions to assess health, one might be, what's your stress level like?
What about PTSD? Would that go deeper or no?
Well, they're all going to go deeper, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. However, in general, this is the one we'll probably look at for most people for that mental, emotional layer of being.
Could you ask the opposite too? What do you do to relieve stress? Or would that not really help you so much?
It would help because it'll help you to know some things that might work for them. Yeah. People usually know what they need to do, they just need you to tell them to do it. And that is the truth.
That is true. That's
Right?
very true. Oh,
We
yeah.
all are that way. Like, I know what I need to do in my life. Another question is, if someone's telling you a story, kind of gauging from the side, saying, well, how does that make you feel? Or what did you do about that? So that if they're telling you, you know, about what happened in traffic on the way over, and someone honked at them in traffic, well, if they flew into a rage and flipped the person off, that's going to tell you something. If they tell you, it was just annoying, but whatever, they're probably, you know, that tells you a little something. It doesn't tell you everything. None of these are going to tell you everything. If they're like, oh my God, I just am so embarrassed I did that, that tells you something, right? I'm so embarrassed. Everyone looked at me and I honked because I screwed up and I did this thing. Look for clarity of thought. So you might say, if they're telling you about something in their life, you might say something like, well, what do you think will happen because of that? So do they have clarity? Or just kind of looking at some of the, just are they seeing things clearly in their lives? And you're also, and you might not ask a person this, but you're thinking to yourself, is fear involved? Because that is the, fear is the biggie in this one.
That makes sense.
What was the, is fear like the strongest emotion?
Love's the strong.
Fear can be pretty bad.
Fear makes us forget that we are love.
Mm-hmm.
Love is a state of existence, not an emotion, but we experience it as emotion so that we can remember who we are.
Oh my goodness.
Is what love is. And we have to learn to love. It's not until we learn to love all other people and all other creatures that we really get back to that state of being. And that's when we get back to the Rastafarian one love thing.
What's that happening in my life?
That's what we're talking about there.
We should make like a loving yoga or something, like whole category.
Right? Yeah. Love yoga. Love yoga.
If you have a client that lies to you a lot,
Oh.
would this kind of fall into
Yeah.
Charge that.
I've had that, so you just made me laugh.
I have a client that I don't think she realizes that she does it. But the more we kind of go through this, I'm like,
Well, and part of that is because, where are my notes? Well, that'll be both of these. Because the next one of the signs of it being healthy is integrity.
I can see.
So it could depend. I mean, it's probably both. It's probably a lack of integrity here that causes the mind to be like, well, I'm just going to say this without almost even knowing it. But it could be. That's a really good question. Okay. Let's go to the fun one to say now. So the, and then the next, the ginya. So ginya. Vijnana Maya Kosha. And you never have to say it if you don't want to. You're not going to tell your client, like, you're Vijnana. It's all it's wax. Oh my God, how do you function? You're not going to say these anyway, but Vijnana. Wisdom sheath, i.e. the intellectual body. When we say intellect in yoga, we are not saying, oh, they're good at math, they're intelligent. That's different. Intellect in yoga is always a higher faculty than thinking, emotions, and subconscious things. It's more than just executive functioning in the brain too, like the brain being able to think through a logic problem or something like that, or plan ahead. Intellectual body, the wisdom sheath, is where we experience, like you might guess, wisdom, which is also known as discernment. You'll hear that a lot in the Yoga Sutras. Did you get to it yet? Discernment?
Yeah, I think
You think so?
No,
I think
discernment means.
Oh, discernment means an ability to make good choices.
I did
Really?
not have that.
What's that?
I thought you said that it was wisdom. I'm sorry.
It's both.
Okay.
Discernment is the ability to make good choices?
No, discern.
I think we
Sorry.
saw one of the sutras that touch on discernment.
Okay. And I think yeah. This is both, the qualities you will see here are wisdom and discernment, which discernment is really kind of a piece of wisdom.
You gotta have wisdom too. have discernment.
I'm sorry, what?
Wisdom to have discernment.
Yeah. Yeah.
What about emotional intelligence?
It's connected here? Yes. Although I also think it shows up here too. Because when this one is healthy, you're going to have a level of, this gives you the ability to look down and go, there's my emotions. So yes, I would say so. Rather than going, I'm just going to act on them all. I want something, so I'm going to get it.
So like you were saying with the ability to make good choices, so like if you, is it based off of like you just don't know what to do, or like what if like you know what you should do but you choose to not do that thing?
Well, here's the thing. A lot of times in life we do know what we need to do. The only confusion comes from us not wanting to do the thing we know we need to do.
Whoa.
That's where most
And is that what this is
inner
talking about?
conflict comes from.
Is that what it, okay.
Yeah. But when it's true confusion, you're usually caught up. Yeah, it'd still be that you're just overthinking it and getting caught up too much here, rather than just, this is like just a knowing. This isn't a thinking process. This isn't writing down, your list of pros and cons.
Good guy.
It's an intuition. It's also integrity, like I mentioned. So there is just a sense of truth to this.
Within yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So like being who you truly are is like being truthful with who you are, how you feel, how you.
I don't know about how you.
Not feel. Okay. How you think, what you believe in.
Here's what I would say.
Okay.
It would then give you the ability to function on this level in a healthy way with how you feel.
Okay.
Some people go, well, we get really caught up and really possessive of our feelings in the West, and we're like, well, I feel mad, so fuck her. All the time, right? When the house is tired, drop an F-bomb. Put it back down.
All right.
But we do
learned
this,
anything
right?
today.
Like in the West, you hear a lot of, well, I just felt that way, and I have to trust how I feel. And no,
that's
you
so
don't.
true.
Your feelings are not you.
Mm-hmm.
Your feelings are not you. Your feelings are a response to a stimulus. And then you get to choose how your feelings are just information. You get to look at them and then choose how you react. Again, we're not repressing them. We're not saying, well, I'm just going to put up with emotional and physical abuse because my feelings don't matter. It's not saying that.
So what are you going to do with it after you
Yeah.
acknowledge the emotions
Yeah.
and feeling, and making a wise decision
Right.
with discernment of the next best action, unattached?
That's all.
Easy. Since you put it that way.
Since you put it that way, that constant
I
battle
think
every day,
self-acceptance
every
is
moment.
going to be even one layer.
Holds them.
Oh, okay.
So bring that up on the next one.
Okay.
Let's talk about, so signs of health and disease. We've gotten into this a little here, but healthy choices versus poor choices. Addiction has its roots here because when this one is obscured, then we think we're just the mind. And then we let the mind and the emotions tell us what to do, and the body, when we are cut off from our true wisdom. So addiction has pretty deep roots at this point here. This is a person who, and this goes to, and I'm sorry, who said it? Was it Jordan who said emotional intelligence?
Yeah.
Yeah, like deep insight into yourself, but also into the world. So there are people who can sit around and be like, and I do this because, and like when I was 5, my father said this, and so therefore I do this. But then they never look out and think about, well, why is Claire, she seems pissed at me, but really, I don't think she is. Maybe she just had a bad day. Maybe someone like said something cruel to her. Like there's, so it goes both ways. Being able to have that intra and interpersonal kind of wisdom. When it's healthy, yeah, there's a trust in self, Janine. A trust in one's intuition. without it, there is this fogginess and kind of like you were talking about, Leah, that lack of clarity too, where there's just, you can't even see what your choices are almost. It's just like, what? And also no trust in one's intuition or one's ability. I mean, there's a lot of just like not trusting in oneself here, I would say.
Could one of the
when it's
healthy
not.
ones be emotional attachments?
Well, this isn't really where you're gonna have emotional attachments.
Okay.
Your healthy emotional relationships, yes, they come, this has to be fairly strong to have those.
Healthy emotional relationships?
Yeah, it's gonna be both of these two. Kind of like these two are really wound up together.
Would you say just healthy relationships then?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, healthy relationships.
Yeah, I'd say it's both of these. Because Manamaya, healthy emotional reactions, it's hard to have healthy emotional relationships unless you have a healthy emotional reaction. But it's hard to have a healthy emotional reaction unless you are able to see the other person's point of view, your own point of view, and to take a breath and then respond. So, in the sake of trucking along, a question you might have here is, why did you make that choice?
It's a loaded question.
Yeah.
And if they don't know, that tells you that there's a disconnect. You're asking, you're not going to ask them, but you're just saying, is there a breach of integrity? Breach, so like a break.
Right.
Is the integrity in this person broken either between what they say they'll do, right? So a lot of times commitment, people who say they're going to do something then flake out all the time, that's a breach of integrity, and that goes back here. But it's also with the self, if someone just never does what's right for oneself and healthy for oneself.
Dishonesty?
Mm-hmm.
Is that what this is?
I think, yeah, I do think dishonesty is here, then the lies are thought about here.
Okay.
And luckily, we don't have to strain our brains too much about exactly what falls where, because we're always going to treat all of them anyway, right? We might focus more on one layer. One more. Are there unhealthy actions, patterns, or habits? Is there a lack of self-control or personal responsibility? Lack of personal responsibility can be a big one right here too. This is kind of the grown-up version of yourself, but the good grown-up, not the like screwed up parent in you that like shames you or that coddles you or whatever, you know.
Can I ask a question just for clarity?
Yeah.
Is the Panchamaya Kosha model, it is based upon Dharma, right? It's individual to it's unique to the individual's Dharma?
Yes and no. So everyone has these layers. How yours look in your life have to do with your Dharma and your karma. Yeah, so what are you here to do? Well, you might have a real strength in one of them. One of them might be really strong and balanced, and that gives you a clue, like, ooh, this is part of my Dharma. This is part of what I'm kind of gifted in and able to give to others.
And for someone that wouldn't quite understand the meaning of those words, for them it kind of boils down to their life they've experienced to this point is why they have areas in which they're stronger than others.
Yes. Yeah. That's a great way to say it. The last one, Ananda Maya Kosha. Ananda is bliss. So the bliss sheath, again, like we talked about last month, when we talk about bliss in yoga, we're not talking about This dark chocolate is blissful. This is real and true and abiding state of being, not a reaction to stimuli. It's known as the soul body. Its function, or its what it gives us, is bliss, or connection, or joy. And typically, the way we work with this one and connect people to it is through devotional practices. Now, we'll talk more about that tomorrow, but devotional can be different things for different people. Devotional might be going out in nature for some people. Other people, it might be praying the rosary at night. This is what connects us to a sense of being more than what we are. There's also a certain amount of faith that happens. So,
Purpose?
I think purpose is kind of, in a weird way, would be these two combined.
Which ones?
Ananda and Vijnana Maya. Wisdom and bliss body combined, I think, would probably be purpose. But yeah, I mean, we could say this. Purpose is in those deeper layers that are closest to our true self. This one is one that, and I put here disconnection rather than dis-ease, because really what we're trying to do is connect back to this one, right? And so it just means we're not remembering this one. We're not connected to this one. So a sign of health might be a sense of spirituality, or, yeah, I think you could say purpose here, a sense of meaning, purpose, a sense of something greater than oneself, but also a connectedness, so that oneself still is part of that integrated whole. If someone is connected here, they can experience joy. And generally, at times when you experience real and true joy, this is what's happening here, is you're connecting back to this deep, deep layer, the most subtle layer, before we go into Atman, which is like all there is, where there's no separation. So there's still a little separation here, which is why it's called the soul body. But it's the closest. It's the layer just before connection to all. Yeah.
And we probably may talk about this tomorrow, but can you be in balance with this one, but be out of balance with Anamaya? Or is it usually?
In general,
What?
everything comes back to forgetting our connection with this one.
Mm.
So let's talk about alcoholism, as an example, is a disconnection from source, or feeling like I am love, I am bliss, leads to a lack of faith, which then leads to confusion, because without faith we're confused as to who we really are, and so we think we're just the mind and our emotions, and so we start making really bad choices and have no discernment. And I'm not saying, by the way, any addiction is just a bad choice. It started as that. It continues because habits get ingrained in the body and in the mind. But then that's where it works out, is it starts to become a habit in the mind, and then it affects our vitality, right? If you've been around an alcoholic or have suffered alcoholism yourself, you know it affects your vitality, and then it shows up physically, right? We can see even things like the classical signs of like the more bulbous red nose in the old men. Like, that's always the one, I don't know. And so it's on all of these, but if we're just out here going, well, give him a nose job, that's not gonna work. If we go, ooh, his liver is screwed, give him some milk thistle and some coffee in the morning so he's awake, and just take the alcohol away, you know, address the habit here and here. Well, if he still feels disconnected from this, that disconnection will then just pop up in another way.
Like another addiction.
Could be addiction.
And could you start to connect and then, and then realize that your other layers are, this is the things that you need to be working on? I mean, obviously that would be the main goal, is to get to that point so that you can work on the other layers.
When you say faith, does it have to be religious faith? Okay, so this can be faith within yourself. This doesn't have to be to anything else.
It's just a real and sincere and true, sometimes it is a religious one,
Right.
but it's not because of the dogma of religion.
I just meant, does it have to be? Like, it doesn't have to be, so that's
No.
cool.
Although I do want to say it's not just faith in yourself. Like, this is different from, I believe in myself. I can do this. I'm the little engine that could. It is a faith that there is something greater, something you are a part of, and it's bigger than yourself, but you are an integral part of and a necessary part of.
Is that like the divine within yourself, or that you look up to and whatnot?
Yeah.
Okay. Big S self.
And this is just a little layer away from the big S self.
Okay.
But we do experience, this is where the experience of bliss and remembering who we really are really starts. And the big S self is in here, and each one of these can be seen as a layer of glass. And it's just, how dirty is that layer of glass? And we just need to go in and clean each layer. So that then we're like, oh, that's who I am. I'm not this gunk over here. Let's, if you have questions, write them down. But let's take a break. 15 minutes is 3:30, so 3:45. Move around a little because you're going to be sitting this afternoon too. The rest
Can
of
we
the
open up the shades to get more light in here?
Oh,
Because
yeah.
it's getting nap.
It is,
It's getting
yeah.
like
Yeah.
nap dimming.
Also, we have a class in here fairly shortly, like we have to pretty much be out of the room at 5. So anything you can do during this break to make that transition
Quicker.
yeah, I'm not saying I'm not saying take everything out or make yourself uncomfortable by sitting on the hard floor, but I'm just saying, like, if there are things you don't leave in here.
Let's freshen the room up while we're out.
Should we put them out in the neighborhood areas that we're going to?
I don't think so.
Are we done? Oh, I thought we were going to 5:30.
Amber, we're doing students tomorrow, right?
No, it starts 5:30 Fridays. I was
I'm
tomorrow.
Oh, right, that's what I was just gonna say, and that was my train of thought.
I can put my books away.
Would you like overlook? Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I did.
Are we just
This is
reading
cloud.
yeah, it's in the last section?
Yeah, I mean, all we need for Vayus is wherever you want to take it. You don't even
Do you
have
have like props? I see.
well, yeah, I just
It
mean,
looks like
or
it.
if you have.
It's snowing in Denver already.
Oh, I believe it.
It was already.
Does anybody want to put it away?
Oh. Well, I look at it.
Very grapes, orange,
Us girls. Can I have an orange?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bring that orange tomorrow, and I might grab
I don't know.
People think they vlog and Sean directly gotta stick together.
So I just wanted to say thank you for that.
Oh no, you're welcome. You're welcome. And dude, take me up on the yoga studio space next week.
I am.
Oh, for real?
I am.
Awesome.
Yep. I put in my time.
Yeah, and just, but what you want, the whole reason we do this is it becomes a visual component of your meditation. So what you need to do is seek out a way that is visually represented. Visual That's fine.
Visualize.
Yeah, then that would be yours.
The human heart, and I know that sounds kind of of sewing, because it's like, it's actually, it's not like a pretty heart, it's like the actual vessels and everything, like I just use more as a heart for sewing.
If that's what comes to you, yeah, absolutely. Oh, I like your
Thanks! Just got it, I was like,
that fabric is so
it's
pretty.
Amazon. Yeah.
Really?
Yep.
Oh, that's super pretty. I'm
Yeah,
just
I
like,
got
these
it.
colors are
I
speaking
know, I
right
like that,
now.
and I got it like a couple weeks ago, because I like to go and drive in the mountains.
Oh,
It's very
yeah.
uncomfortable to sit on the mountains.
Yeah,
So I was
sure.
Like, I can bring that and sit and like, I'll just be.
Have you used it yet, or have you had the right kind of weather? For
No,
sitting
actually
out
today's the first day I've used it, because I don't do well with the cold, so unless it's like 60 degrees and we're not like getting out of the car. So yeah.
So it'll be for
So I think it's a
late
summer
spring,
thing. Yep.
summer kind of.
I'm like, we'll test it out here first.
Yeah, right.
Jordan just was standing there and I just let out the hugest belch and everybody at 200 just looked and I'm like, I'm so sorry.
We've heard someone burp before, I'm sure.
God, yeah. And she hid. So I'm standing there like, huh? No, I'm training. Yeah.
You better? You feel better?
What you gonna do? I don't know whose these are. But I don't like peanut butter cups or
They're
dark
being
chocolate.
passed around,
Oh,
so
I
just-
appreciate you, but I don't want to. I didn't.
Are you hugs?
Did you try those clothes?
I did.
Did they fit?
They do.
I got more. Like
I think
shorts.
I kept the.
Is it snowing?
Yeah.
Is
It's
it
supposed-
snowing?
It's supposed to.
Wow, I thought it was gonna be really nice today.
Yeah, it's supposed 30%.
I'm gonna try to wear the red shorts at some point.
Dude.
And I liked the blue top with the black and red flower.
I have more.
And the skirt. I don't have a lot of skirts, but I was like, man, this nice summer, like the black one with the little flower.
Yes, I have long skirts too if you want to
Yeah.
look through them, dude.
Yeah, I
And
love
people,
all of those.
I have had so many people like give me stuff, and I just didn't really have the balls to say no. Or all my ex's mothers,
Yeah.
and now I'm purging my house.
Yep.
I'm fine. I have. Is that on?
Late entry to hot classes ever.
To any class ever. This is still on, I think, and I'm just gonna get all up in it. Hi, Lauren. Hi, Lauren. We miss you.
hurts so bad.
I need to go upside down. My back hurts.
But, oh, it's starting to snow.
It is starting to snow.
What's that? What was that? I just did a handstand. My back. It makes my back feel better.
My back hurts and my hips hurt right here.
So I get that elongation and it decompresses my back. If I could get one of those like inversion tables.
Yeah. So I have no curve in my cervical spine at all. It's completely straight. So if I could get an inversion table, it would be life changing for me.
Get like the aerial hammer thing.
I have one, but my roof is too high for it.
You should have aerial hammock in one day.
I'm not good at it. I'm not good at it, but I own one.
Yeah. Freezing.
It might be better now that I have a deeper regular practice. But when I first got it, I was like, well, what am I doing?
I did air classes back in Columbus. I'd love to do them
Yeah.
again. Isn't there a
There's
studio
one
right
there.
here?
We should go as like a
I'm trying to
little
get
trip.
a class there.
Yeah.
We should go. I've never done true aerial. I just have mine at home in my house.
I've done both.
Petra.
I play around with mine. Mine
She
usually
used
9
to,
to 10 times
help
is me
with
just
the
hanging
social
upside down
media.
swinging.
She
Right, and
got
it just turns into
training.
like
Good.
yeah. And like once in a while I'll play
She's
with like
German.
the straps that like stretch out. But
Yeah.
usually it's just hanging upside down.
Okay, is she?
Or like pull because I don't pull up bars, so I just do pull ups and like jump into the seat.
Like mine has the helmet up high. It has like the skirt. It has like
4 different.
yeah, just like everywhere. And so like I'll go up like that and like do like back bends.
Yeah.
Oh my god, it feels so good.
Another good one for me I like to do is like lay back in it, put it right across
And, like,
and
just
have the
let it
shoulder.
in.
Yes, and just like fall into
I
it.
can ask Austin if I can teach aerial at the new studio, and he said
No.
What time are we supposed to be back?
We gotta
It's
get
a
the-
huge liability to do
45.
aerial. That's
but
what's
ready to go at 45.
Yeah.
and the build, like the building.
Yeah, you have to have the proper structures and the proper hooks and all that. It's a lot. My old dance studio I used to teach at, we had aerial there. I didn't teach aerial, but we had it there.
So if you guys know any places they might offer class, let me know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, I'm really
Cool.
aerial.
Yeah.
Dude,
All week I was waiting for it.
so good at aerial.
I have this
She, like,
tree in my
she
backyard
performs
that
on
is
aerial.
half
I
dead.
know.
She does
I don't
easy,
even
not
know
normal.
that.
If it does that, I can take out the power line and my
No,
mouth.
they just want you.
I'm just
Wait, let me know. I need to park under it.
So
It's in my backyard, so.
I just said it now.
How would you mark your backyard as landscaping? I don't know. It's like a Subaru Outback or something.
Right? Like, that's just.
There you go. I have a question
The
for you.
driveway's back there.
When I go into half moon, this is why I'm doing half moon, I cramp so bad.
Yeah.
Right
it's
here.
really cold.
I heard that like freezing.
Why would I cramp
Yeah,
right there?
20s.
Have you spent much time in the sun?
Well, I mean, I'm
This is
not
my
doing
first
like
time
the.
ever.
Okay.
Are you thinking
so
about
this
lifting
week
up
it's
and out of the
cold.
hip as well as rooting down?
Tomorrow?
That's a very
Yeah,
solid
like
thing.
tons of
Yeah,
Oh,
that's what
yeah.
you're saying. So you will want to bring
Yeah.
your
Do you
warm
cramp
layers.
their forward
Yeah.
quads?
No, I cramp there. Basically, any lift that I go behind myself. But what's weird, it won't cramp on the lifted, it'll cramp on the base. That's what's weird. I was like dying this morning. I'm like, I can't do this.
You were
I think that dramatic. That you're pushing.
It was dramatic for me.
You're putting too much weight in your hip. You're not distributing it evenly from the bottoms of your feet up.
Yeah, I was gonna say more flex.
Yeah.
Flexion in your toe.
You know what's funny is literally any balance thing I've had to lift my toes. Even in like a warrior, I have to lift my toes now because everything is just like off kilter.
Yeah, it does put a lot of pressure there, and then having a block or something.
Yeah,
so you
and
got a little bit
when
of
we
floor.
did the other round, I was like, oh yeah, here's a block. It's close. So I was smart that way, but it's so cramped. I still had to stop it.
And Amber, is there any like philosophy about time traveling in yoga? I'm like pretty serious. If you're reincarnating, there gotta be some way to connect with, I don't know, past
Previous.
or time in your matrix.
Well, here's how I've heard it explained.
Okay.
Is that so we think of time as this linear thing, right? Where we're on, like if you imagine a river, right now you're aware of this part of the river, but it still exists behind you and in front of you. You're just not aware of it. So all of time exists at once. So therefore, all of your lives actually exist at once. It's just a matter of which one you have awareness in at the time.
It always feels like that.
Oh, that explains a lot.
Right?
Accelerated.
And some people.
Wow.
Oh, you could go on and on.
No, go.
Yeah, so some people describe it as, so if you imagine like, almost like, you know those foosballs type things? They're like a ball that has the things that poke out.
ball.
Kush ball? Yeah. If you imagine, instead of time being linear, time moving that way, and then shrinking back on itself, then it all happens at the tip of those ends at once. Which then also means consciousness is everywhere at once, and that all lives of anyone are your lives.
All lives of anyone?
In your life.
In your, wow, whoa.
Present, past, or future, because they all happen at once.
Right.
Actually, we're all.
No wonder why we're all messed up.
It's all.
Oh yeah.
We got a lot of stuff
So
going on
much
at
going on.
once.
I
No
know.
wonder why we can't think
It's
straight.
hard.
It's hard.
Being human's hard.
It's so hard.
Like, just think about that. Wow.
Yeah. So those are kind of different. Some people say, well, no, there's different, like your Purusha, your experience of you has these lives, but not those. And some would say, no, you are all lives.
Well,
So-
if we're all one, then we would be.
What?
Right?
Right. Oh, and we are.
Right.
So.
So then we are all lives.
Yeah.
Well, y'all better get your stuff together. You're messing with me.
Before we start, can we briefly hear everyone's
Zodiac.
Let's do it at the end
Okay.
as our last word of the day.
Wait a minute, what are we doing?
our zodiac.
Oh.
Are there any other Leos in here?
Me?
The other
What day?
19.
20th.
You're ruining the surprise at the
Swear to
end.
I was born in New Jersey.
I was born in New York.
New York.
I'm just
Queens.
Joycey
in New York.
How long did you live there?
Until I was like 27.
And then you moved here?
That would be a
No, I went up and down the East Coast.
Well,
Oh,
you
nice.
have
Very
12
nice.
signs in 12 different houses, and so
What? It's all about you at the rising.
it doesn't really.
Because I
I
have to leave
found out my
early.
moon sign
Although
was a
I
Gemini and I
usually-
cried.
That makes sense. It does make sense.
I can usually.
No, my moon sign is Cancer, but I'm Aquarius rising.
Okay, so let's get started.
At the end, guys. That's
Like, I'm not gonna be led down this rabbit hole.
We're gonna get lost forever. Ignore it.
So like, this is I'm a Cancer.
Vayus.
Vayus.
You would. Let me see where all you have stuff on Vayus. You have.
Is it feminine shape in here?
So the page right before the one with all the circles for the Koshas is a person where you can draw where the Vayus, the areas the Vayus govern and where they generally reside. And if you're thinking what's a Vayus, don't worry, I will let you know. And then there's just kind of a little grid that breaks down the general information about it on the other side. So Vayu translates as wind.
Wind or wind?
Wind. W-I-N-D.
Oh, wind.
Yeah, like.
She
Slap at
snorted.
me a
She
little.
snorted.
You got me.
And these are called winds because this is the direction the prana or life force moves through the nadis. So what are the nadis? Energy channels that go through the body, right? And they carry it throughout, and where there are major intersections, we have what?
Chakras.
Chakras, yeah. See, even if you didn't know that, you could just make it up. Just throw a guess at me. Where they cross, we have puppy dogs. I don't even know, but I love that you said that.
So they move through the nadis and it just moves through the whole body? Well, I mean,
What is that?
you said they move through the nadis?
The prana.
The
Prana
Vayus.
moves through the nadis.
Yeah.
Oh,
The Vayus are the.
I'll get to Vayus in a second. I haven't said what Vayus are yet, other than wind. So, let's
some of you who had 200-hour, some of you, I think, did it before we talked Vayus. I don't remember if we were doing Vayus then. Some of you had this with me, but will have forgotten. And some of you had it with someone else, or not, and that's cool too. So, but this is generally the analogy that I like to use, is if the nadis are like the streets and roads going through your system, the prana is the cars or vehicles moving through it, right? And where we have big intersections where lots of prana is being carried and crossing through, that's where we have chakras. The direction those cars go, that's the Vayus. Okay? So if I am in the right lane on Austin Bluffs looking in that direction, I'm going to go west. That's the Vayu. Kind of like wind, right? You might blow a leaf or a feather in a certain direction. That's where that's where winds comes from.
So it might be the direction of prana, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's almost what pushes it. It's like the force that moves it in that way.
Is it
These are actually, because the word prana isn't used enough, right? Like we just talked about pranamaya kosha, and now we're talking about prana. These are actually the prana Vayus. But it makes sense, right? Because it's what carries the prana. It's what moves it. It's like a current of water, too, you can think of it as. So the Vayus, there are 5 of them. Lots of 5s in yoga. Oh, are we recording?
It's been
This is
recording.
great.
Yeah.
Even on break? Okay, cool.
I said
So,
hi to
sorry,
Lauren. No, I told her hi.
Thank you. Thanks for all of you who are helping with that. I totally lost my train of thought.
Vayus.
We have 5 of them. And that means there's 5 general directions of movement. It moves in all directions in all parts of your body. However, there are certain seats of the Vayu where it's stronger.
Okay.
Yeah? The first one, and I think as soon as we look at the first one, it makes a lot of sense. The first one is Apana, Vayu, A-P-A-N-A. It's generally symbolized as a downward arrow because this is energy moving down. Its seat, the place where it's the strongest, is from about these little ASIS points, your hip bumps right there. So, if this is a hip bump,
It looks such an artist, Amber.
My minor was art. I just don't have the patience for making things pretty. Okay, but yeah, so my art teachers would absolutely cringe, which is kind of fun for me. But it generally, where it's the strongest is from your hip bones down. And that makes sense, right? The lowest part of your body, it grounds us to the earth. This is where most elimination and downward movement happens. We have to have apana in order to go to the bathroom, deliver babies, have a period, right? That's the downward moving force. It's not, I guess you could say it's kind of like gravity. It gets stronger as we get older. That's why our skin starts to do this, and why we start to do this. And so this apana gets stronger as we get older. Question? No, just.
So is that root and sacral chakra?
Yes, I'm so glad you said that. Just trying to pick markers that will show up on that board, and I don't know if I'm doing a very good job. So she might need to borrow someone's notes, because this is not going to help her. That's your little root chakra, and that's your sacral chakra. And again, that makes sense with what systems we have here, right? We have reproduction and elimination.
you can see its function is really letting go.
Could this also be like attachment?
Yeah, these all do have an, not just a physical, but it is in our minds as well, right? So just like the chakras, you think of, okay, root chakra is holding on a little too strong, right? Which we call being anal. That's being too attached to the way things need to be, or to people, or to outcomes. So yeah, the opposite is attachment here. Now, when we look at Vayus with a client, and we will talk more about this tomorrow, I'm just going to go over the Vayus today, but just to give you a little heads up, if someone has a really strong apana, I'm not going to think about how to weaken it. I'm going to look at a different Vayu to strengthen that will kind of suck its energy away. It's just a lot easier that way. And I think as we get into the other Vayus, that will make more sense too. What is a pose and or a yoga practice that will strengthen apana? So let's say apana is weak. Someone is, right, like they're kind of flighty and
Grounding.
Grounding practices. Just literally imagining you're grounding. What else?
Malasana?
Well,
nope.
Mula Bandha.
It's going to do the opposite because Mula Bandha actually, so we're trying to pull energy up the spine with Mula Bandha.
Right.
Apana is what keeps us in the physical and keeps us from here. Now we have to have it while we live to function and survive in the world. But in meditation and in yoga practices, we're actually trying to limit apana to an extent. That said, we still have some poses that will strengthen it. Huh?
Headstand?
Headstand would weaken it.
Cool, so I know the exact opposite.
You
of
do?
what-
Here, when I get to Uddiyana, you're going to say headstand.
If anybody else says it,
What about like Warrior 2 with Mula Bandha?
Yeah, you can, well,
No Mula Bandha.
No Mula
Mula
Bandha?
Bandha is always going to limit it to an extent, but you can really focus on rooting down in Warrior 2, yes.
Okay.
What else?
Tadasana.
To an extent, yes.
Bridge pose?
Child's pose?
A lot.
Okay.
Yeah. So think
Sure,
of
I
this.
got one.
The more of you that touches the earth, the more
Shavasana?
apana. Yeah, that's the ultimate.
Oh.
Yes.
Janine
That was
passed it
weird.
in.
Thank you.
Yeah, the Shavasana is really the ultimate one because that's where we are letting go.
Yeah.
And we are making the most contact with the ground, so we have the most just downward. We're not lifting away from the ground at all.
So is this the hardest Vayu to balance because Shavasana is the hardest pose? Or no?
I think it depends on the person. Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question, and I get it, but I don't know the answer. Yeah.
The mudra book, I had purchased it because it was, everyone had suggested it. Vayus are mentioned in there, and so certain mudras can help with
Yes.
grounding. I just couldn't tell you
When
which
we
one.
get to our toolbox tomorrow, I want
mudra.
you to say mudras.
Okay.
At some point.
And you're gonna say boo
I saw all the
mudra.
pictures of you.
It's a grounding mudra.
Oh, do you?
Did I do it right? Yeah, so I was thinking that.
Yeah.
Do it.
So
Yeah.
make sure you say
Thank you. Yeah.
So
What else?
Vayus aren't something you can control? Is it just something that tells you where you're imbalanced?
You can, because you can strengthen them. So if this one's weak and I'm really flighty and ungrounded, and say I'm nervous, I might do Shavasana. I might do Mulasana, right? Like that's a very grounding, low to the ground kind of pose. I might do Makarasana, right? So any pose where there's lots of letting go, contact with the ground. We can also make any pose have an aspect of apana,
right? By talking about grounding down. All right. Let's keep moving. Like I said, we will get to more of these in more detail in Vayus. We'll get to talk about how to work with them more tomorrow. All right, the next one. Here's, I feel like this person's name is Herbert. And that's Herbert's belly button. I'm right around in this area, third chakra. Here are the, that's not what you think. Those are lower ribs. Herbert just started to look like there was some, yeah. No, these are lower ribs, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to make that look like low.
I don't think it's
low
gonna get any
boobs.
better.
I realized as I drew it, I was like, this is just gonna
Hana strong.
There you go.
Alright. This is samana. S-A, like Sam, and then ana. Samana. This one is moving from without to within. So inward moving. It is typically drawn with 4 arrows, 3 moving toward the center, 1 moving out. Don't get too confused about the one moving out. All that means is, so here we have our center of digestion, right? Like our stomach is breaking down food and we're metabolizing it. Well, when we break things down and bring them together, then there's this, that happens after. That's all that the other arrow is. Don't worry about it. This governs assimilation. So assimilating both knowledge and experiences and ideas, as well as assimilating nutrients and food, right? I don't mean assimilating people of other cultures into ours. That's how we often use that term.
Appropriation?
Well, in anthropology we always called it assimilation, but it is appropriation too, probably. Well, that'd be taking theirs. So samana is bringing everything in and digesting. This is absorption, consolidation. This is where introverts tend to be really strong with samana. It's that inward moving energy, which is also can be very self-reflective. It can get too strong, as all introverts know, right? We tend to fall into the, when we are suffering or going through stress or whatever, we tend to fall into the shadow side of our strength. So whereas an introvert might be, I'm comfortable at home, I like to self-reflect and journal and grow that way, it could turn into, oh my God, I can't leave my house, and what is everyone thinking about me? Or what if I, just overthinking, overanalyzing. And then at the other end, if it's weak, you don't have enough digestion of experiences or processing. This is processing, digesting.
Is there an Amber Alert?
Yeah, did all of us?
I don't know, but somehow.
No, Austin posted something in the Google Classroom. That was so funny.
So samana. Anything else on that?
Twist.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Just
Twist are the ultimate. Twist,
Eagle?
but anytime you're crossing, the center line of the body, right? So twisting is crossing the center line and really coming inward, but also think of any kind of making yourself come from without to within. So to an extent, right, like especially in child's pose like this,
What is the one where you have your forehead to the ground, but then you raise your hips and you've got your hands on your heart?
Rabbit.
Rabbit.
That's
oh, this
Rabbit.
way? Okay, I
Yeah.
was visualizing something else. Yeah, rabbit, and also because there is a certain amount of core work happening, so core stuff.
There's that.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So, forward folds can be both of these.
Right. That's where I wasn't sure because you are at your hips, but you're. Okay.
Yeah, but we're still making ourselves smaller, and we're actually making this area, we're putting.
You said solar plexus, right?
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yeah, navel, solar plexus area. Okay. Now, I'm really disliking this brown. But it is what it is. From about the collarbones to this area. So this includes heart chakra. We have prana. Prana Vayu. Because remember, these are all prana Vayus. So this is prana Vayu. Vayus are of the subtle body, so they're in the pranamaya kosha, and they carry prana. I don't know. Don't think about it. Just write it. Just write it.
Which way does the energy go?
Oh yeah.
This one is both up and forward.
Okay.
And so it's can be drawn like this. In some systems it's up and then down the arms to the hands also, which is why the heart and the hands connect.
Is there an arrow on the top one too, or no? Just
There is.
There is. Okay.
So prana, obviously, it's in the chest area. That's where it sits. It has to do with, I have here, it governs intake, inspiration, and propulsion. So you think our whole respiratory system's here, right? So to an extent, what are we breathing in? But also, it's moving us forward in life, so when we're stuck, we don't have enough prana vayu. It's also because the heart chakra is here, it's heart chakra stuff. So a lot of these you can really correlate directly. Samana is going to be third chakra stuff if you know your third chakra, right? And if you don't, that's okay, because we're talking about it enough, you're fine. If you know your heart chakra stuff, balanced heart chakra is generally balanced prana. And so then we can say, when it's not balanced, when there's too much of it, someone might be too giving,
Too willing.
martyrish almost, too, what else? Willing, what else?
Too forgiving.
Forgiving, yeah. And then on the other side, you know, like, I'm sorry.
I said pride or ego. She said unavailable.
Unavailable. Any of that, yeah. Just like that whole Pat Benatar, gonna harden my heart, gonna swallow my tears.
I don't know that song. Can you sing it?
I didn't think anyone in here would, but I bet you do.
I know that song.
Who else?
I know.
You know it?
Surprisingly.
I always liked how she said tears. Tears. She's like turned it into two songs.
With wheel or camel?
Yeah, so to strengthen it, right, we're gonna look at heart opening. Sorry. All right. Udana.
Ooh.
Get ready, Nika, you're coming up soon. Udana is basically your opposite end of Apana. Apana has this little tail, so I remember it's like you can do an arrow pointing down there, the letter P, whereas Udana has a little thing comes up from the D that you can draw an arrow on, and in my brain, that helps me. If it doesn't help you, don't worry about it. Udana is upward moving.
And that's from the collarbone where?
Up.
Well, where does
All the
it
way.
end?
There's a lot of discussion around that. It depends on which system, where the seventh chakra is in the system. Either at the crown of the head or just above it.
Okay.
So it's just the third eye chakra?
It would be throat.
And
This
third eye?
one is a busy one.
Third eye.
Third eye and crown.
You know how there's like so many chakras and we focus on these main 7? Is that how Vayus are too? Are there so like millions and we're just kind of...
No.
Okay.
My and I may find out I'm totally wrong. I've never heard that if that's the case.
Okay.
Good. So many good questions. So Udana moves up. Because it has to do with all of these chakras, it therefore has to do with everything these chakras would have to do with, right? Your ability to speak your truth, intuition, thinking, connection to source, whatever you call that, big S, self, God, whatever. A certain amount of faith, things like that. Too much of it, what might that look like? Yes, say that louder. You got
Not grounding.
Not being grounded, right? So we can really, have you ever known anyone who's just like their head's in the sky?
Yep.
And they have pipe dreams and they can come up with these great ideas, but you're like, you know that there's not that. This is the liberating current, it moves up. Manifesting current, apana moves down. So these people have a hard time making anything happen.
Wait, so this one's manifesting and apana.
Apana manifests, it brings things from here down, whereas Udana releases or liberates.
Could too much Udana be Vata?
Oh yeah, and the next one can too.
Would this be like extended mountain pose?
Yes.
So be like, I don't know, headstand maybe.
That's a great idea.
So insightful, yes, headstand. Yeah,
Or like
headstand because we're literally flipping
The movement.
apana upside down, right? And that is essentially making things go stronger this way.
Any inversion?
Inversions in general, yes, will have a certain amount of this. And like I was saying, most poses are going to have a couple of these at least. But yeah, extended mountain, anything with this kind of thing, or just a focus on lengthening the spine. Okay, now, there's one more that exists. It doesn't really have a seat. Its place it lives is everywhere. And it's Vyana, V-Y-A-N-A. And it is pretty much the opposite of Samana. So, whereas here we have 3 arrows in, 1 out, here we would have 3 arrows out and 1 pointing in. And that's because in general, it's moving things out from the center. There is a little, because this has to do with circulation and the circulatory system, by the way, it needs to be bringing some stuff back in, right? But it's also just this out in every direction kind of thing. This is where extroverts tend to be strong. And when they are out of balance, they over-extrovert. So, if Samana, let's say this one's really strong. I just gave you the answer. If Vyana is really strong, what one tends to be really weak?
The opposite.
Yeah, or the opposite. If Udana tends to be strong, what one tends to be weak? If Prana is really strong, you kind of have to analyze the situation and figure it out, because it could be Apana, it could be too much Samana and not a willingness to move forward and go forth. So this is the one that can be a little trickier, but that's why in general we can just look at what to strengthen. So if I'm looking at someone and I'm like, this person cannot leave their house, their Samana so strong right now, instead of worrying about weakening Samana, I'm going to, yeah.
What
Give me a guess. Yeah. These.
Wide.
The more space you take up, so I mean, I don't think there is a bigger one than 5-pointed star.
Yeah.
But, you know, we have all kinds of, I would say, crescent, or half moon. I would say revolved half moon, but then it's got a little samana too, so that's an interesting one, right? So you can see, depending on what you emphasize, it can bring about both or make one stronger than the other. But yeah, the more space you take up, warriors, the warrior ones are really, I would say, other than 5-pointed star, warrior 2.
Would the upper facing dog?
It can be, but it's going to be more prana because of the heart opening. And not up moving. So let's just, I'm going to quickly, well, I'm just thinking out loud, sorry. What questions do you have?
I just can't remember.
Is this something that we're gonna be applying to our practice on a regular basis? Like, is this, or is this, because I remember learning a little bit about this when we did yin.
To an extent, well, we did a separate thing on it too in just teacher training. You're always doing this in your asana practice because this is the beauty of asana. Whether you're doing your hot practice or a vinyasa practice or yin, you are generally moving the body in so many different ways that you are
working all this
taking care of all of them. But you can really hone in and focus. So if you're having a day where your mind is scattered all over the place, it might be a day where you're like, I really want to focus on apana. I'm going to do all of the things, but a little more apana.
Just for my understanding, would your Vayus, understanding your energy of your Vayus, help you with your Koshas?
Yeah, yes.
And how to dissect that
Yeah.
sort of thing. Okay, I think I understand.
Yeah, and
Once we put it all together.
they actually exist in the pranamaya kosha, right? Because that's where the subtle body is. However, they all affect each other, right? And that's why the chakras, yeah, they live in the subtle body, but your mind impacts, your thoughts impact your chakras impact your thoughts, and back and forth. So it's all connected. And we will tomorrow talk more about then what you do when you have, you know, how you look at someone and go, okay, what one do I think is in need of some strengthening here? Yeah.
So I thought Pranavayu was going upward and also going down eventually, or am I understanding
I have
wrong?
never heard that.
Never heard that.
The only two things I've heard is it's up and forward,
Up and
or up and kind of down, because down your arms
Okay.
to these minor chakras on your hands. However, a lot of people would say, no, that's just apana pulling it down. That's just because apana's everywhere, right? So,
It's really quick.
and I don't remember. I don't remember exactly what the Upanishad says about that, but I know it's vague enough that there's, you know, yeah.
Forgive me if I just ask this. Are we using this in our privates? With our private clients?
That's why tomorrow we'll talk more about it.
Is that what you just said?
Kind of.
Yeah.
Just how is it connected, but yeah.
We will go over tomorrow how you can look at this and come up with some stuff to help someone to support their healing. I would like to do a quick movement thing before we do homework, because I think everyone's mind could stand to wake up a little bit. And I don't. I just think it'll make the questions around homework so much better for you. You won't have it so much. So we'll do a little thing with the Vayus.
kind of like Simon Says, right? Did I do this with
You did this in 2 hours, yeah.
Did I? Sometimes I do it, sometimes I don't. Sometimes I'm like, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do it. So apana, if I say apana, you're just going to do this, right? In whatever way you want. It can be a forward fold, if your hamstrings are feeling blah, it can be that, whatever you want. So that's apana, okay? Let's do samana, like small, and everything coming in. So let's see apana. Samana. Okay. Vyana. What do you think? Yeah, just as big as you can without putting out your neighbor's eye. And let's do prana, like a little. And what else is there? Udana. Okay. Vyana. Udana.
Wait.
Prana. Okay, don't watch me anymore.
You're right,
Apana. Samana. Udana. Vyana. Udana. Vyana. Udana. Prana. Samana. Udana. Apana. Vyana.
What did you say? Oh, yeah.
All right, good job. Come on, Dallin. A little bit of movement, right?
That's a good one to remember it. Remember it.
Yeah, well, you know, some
That is
stuff it
good.
feels like our bodies just can really help us. A little bit of movement.
Well, that makes sense because when people get I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Please, go ahead.
And they say think of one long line of energy from your head to your heels. That makes sense. And I used to be like, why is this a long line? What is talking about energy? Now I get it.
Oh, cool.
That was my aha moment, you guys.
Yeah.
And then they say send all the energy to your fingertips in 5-pointed star, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. That is exactly it. And intention really serious.
Yeah, it was just like a two
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right. So homework. This list I'm reading directly off the calendar. So
you don't
if you,
have to write it.
yeah, I mean, it's up to you what notes you write, but
I just remember
you will have your weekly, your questions that will be posted. That it says Facebook on here, but we're actually doing Google Classroom for that. Austin gave you intermediate posture homework.
That's
So-
the 15-minute flow that we have to come up with, yes?
We just have to fill out those sheets, I think, for now.
Yeah, it's got
Yeah,
like
create a
asana
sequence.
benefits, cues, that.
That's not
Create
till
a
next
sequence
month,
till
though.
next month.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he went over all of our poses with us already.
What's not due to next
They're
month?
all approved.
The
So
That
15 minutes.
15.
The flow, okay.
Yeah, but this is all your homework for next month.
Yeah.
Because if I do this with you Sunday night, you're
No
gonna.
homework will get done.
Well, it'll just be really. It's just so much harder Sunday. You know now.
Yeah.
Your reading for this next coming month is chapters 7 through 12 of the Gita. If you haven't finished that introduction, take some time with it. We're reading the track called the Foundation in the sutras. You know how there's the list of sutras in the back of that book? We are finishing the foundation section. So section 1. If you need to see what those sutras are, it is in here. They're listed.
Calendar, Google Calendar.
Is the Ayurveda reading due next month or is that?
May.
May, okay, sorry.
Yeah, but do keep it in your awareness.
I
So
just remember it was March or May, it was end month. I
Mhm.
don't remember which one.
keep it in your awareness so that you can start. I mean, if I were you, I'd start it this month, certainly. But yeah, it's not due. You will have your first private session presentation due in March. We will talk more
about this tomorrow, and it will make so much more sense to you tomorrow. I'm going to literally be like, and then you do this, and then you do this. But because we're doing homework now, I just want to put that out there. So what that will involve, the things it will involve, is a phone call with your mentor between the 18th and 25th. These dates are also in here, but as well.
It's not the right dates in there.
It is under physical wellness stuff.
Oh, was it? Oh, good.
Or under,
Because it wasn't under the private, that's all.
Of March or February? Yeah, February.
Yeah, February.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna look for it now, but one of them, oh, here it is, physical. Oh, I have the old one, so I couldn't find it for you anyway.
It's like under the library.
Yeah, they're just flipped, so the dates for physical are the ones for mental, emotional, and the ones, they're just flipped.
Oh, are we doing the mental and emotional one first?
Yeah. Yeah, we discussed this.
They were flip-flopped in the book.
That's okay, you're just gonna treat their that stuff for them. You're going to get that phone call scheduled. It's about a half-hour phone call. I will tell you what you need to prepare for that phone call. We'll talk about that tomorrow. Your mentor information and contact info is where? Yeah, you got it. During this month, you will then meet with your client, and you want to meet with them as shortly after you talk with your mentor as possible, because you need to leave time for a follow-up. The follow-up can be over the phone, but if you meet with them 3 days before we meet in March, and then you follow up 3 days later, you're not going to know if it's helping them, right? If they're like, well, I did it once. You want to give them at least 2 weeks to implement the things that you have suggested.
So the follow-up phone call with our private client will be 2 weeks after we see them?
At least, yeah. Yeah, it will be as far out from your meeting with them as possible, and before we meet. You'll prepare a short presentation. We'll talk about that too tomorrow. It's easy. It's not going to hurt your brain. You don't have to type anything or do a PowerPoint. Yeah, I mean the hardest part about that will be narrowing down what to say, so that you don't talk for 20 minutes, because there's 14 people, and while we love all of that information, we just don't have the time for it. So, that's it as far as your private session. If you haven't signed up for sadhana teaching, do that.
Can I say a question real quick? Do we have to do one area at least once?
Yes. Yeah.
Also on that, there's 2 Augusts and a June. I don't know if that was because of
2 August?
Some of them had 2 months on them.
June
Will you ask Laura, because she's in charge of that?
Okay.
Will you do that for me?
Thank you.
Yeah, I know she skipped a month, but I don't, obviously she didn't realize she had 2 on there, so.
I know June's are Shoshone.
That's what I was trying to say, Shoshone.
Yeah.
And there's a July, but there's 2 August and a September.
Yeah, I think one of those off.
Maybe one's supposed to be October.
I think
No,
it
there's
was
an October.
too.
Okay.
It starts in April.
Because
That's why.
So we just
Well, we'll
talked to
let her
Laura and
figure it out.
Okay.
We'll let her figure that out. But do let her know,
I
please.
will.
And thank you for noticing that. I'll talk to you about your sadhana in a minute. Oh, it's on here twice, intermediate postures homework, so.
Make sure you get it done.
Yeah, make sure you get it done. Let's talk sadhana. So, just to discuss what you can be doing this month or not doing. A reminder that if you just turn to sadhana, you have your sadhana order. If you're doing the full sadhana all in one sitting, these are the things you would include. Then there's Holy Kriya, keep going until you get to the thing where it has the months. or month 2. Now, you get to choose what you're doing. So when we're looking at the Kriya, this includes, when it says Madhyama, okay, now only one just means the sucking in and then pumping. That's not only one. You may not even be there yet. You might just be working, and I don't mean just like, oh, you suck, you're just working on it. I don't mean that at all. There's no judgment in any of it. We're all going to be at different places with different things. So you might be working on just getting that suction feeling of pulling in, right? You might be at not only one where you're pumping, okay? You might start to be getting the isolation of the reed down the middle. That's Madhyama.
That's true.
And that's what you're working on. We will go over the next isolations. Yeah, I don't know if we're going to do that tomorrow. So don't worry. But for this month, just see where you're at with Nahuli. Keep practicing that. We have Ujjayi breath here. Use Ujjayi breath in your asana, even if your practice doesn't normally use it, unless you're doing yin. Don't use it in yin or restorative. But be using the Ujjayi. This says no Kumbhaka. Don't worry about that. That's oh shoot. These aren't updated. All right, I'm going to tell you what to circle. So. Just cross that out. You do want to be doing Ujjayi breath somewhere in your practice. But right in your pranayama, Nadi Shuddhi, or Kapalabhati, right? So work on your Kapalabhati, or skull shining. Technically Kapalabhati, oh, it's up here. Gosh, I'm so sorry, I'm really getting you confused, I'm sure. Kapalabhati is under Kriyas, because it's technically a Kriya. So you're working on that. Your pranayama is your alternate nostril, or Nadi Shuddhi. And you're just layering on whatever layer you're ready for. So you're counting it, right? You're doing the bija sound with it. If you feel ready, you're looking up at the third eye. You're doing it all with the double wave up, right? Which just means belly, ribs, chest, inhale, belly, ribs, chest, exhale. So it goes the same direction. Double wave up. And adding those visualizations as and when you're ready, as well as then extending the breath. What did he say about that this morning? Do you remember? Did he say that? I'm so sorry. All of a sudden I don't know
He did, but he said eventually, yeah.
Yeah, it'll be like inhale 2, exhale 4.
So that's something you can play with this month. If you're feeling like you're ready, you can add on 1 breath beat until the exhale is twice as long as the inhale. But something I want to say to you, all of your breathing that is not Ujjayi should be quiet and subtle and soft. So the trick to elongating your breath is to make it more gentle, not to take more in. And so sometimes we get louder because we think extending the length of the breath means taking more in. It doesn't. It means slowing down what we take in. Volume will increase over time too, but that's not really our focus. It's not this big... Now, sometimes your nostrils are just going to make noises because of whatever's going on in your face. But
I like there's stories behind that.
I don't know. Probably. But think about this with all of your breathing, is trying to be more gentle rather than, oh, I want to make it longer, so I'm going to be more forceful.
And that includes then in the meditation. Sometimes we get real like, I'm bringing that breath in and up. And it has this force to it, and that was dramatic, but really the softer you get with it, the longer you can make that breath. So, now that I've confused you on pranayama, just a reminder though, after your Kapalabhati, particularly if you're finding yourself pissed off during the day, add Shitali or the Siddharita. You should do 1 to 3 of these probably anyway, but especially if you're finding you're really frustrated or really angry. That can be just too much heat with the Kapalabhati. Kapalabhati also just watch yourself in the mirror and make sure you're pumping from here rather than, okay? So before I even attempt to talk about meditation, kriyas, questions, that includes Nauli and Kapalabhati.
Oh, yes, real quick. The lock of the bandhas, I thought we were supposed to engage all 3 of them after we do the exhale.
Yes.
In the Kapalabhati.
You are.
Didn't Austin
Yeah,
say
Austin
that?
inhale. So I thought we were like inhaling and holding our breath, and I was like having a hard time holding it. And it's definitely a lot easier if you exhale.
Yeah. It can be done both ways, but I don't know what he did this morning. I don't remember this morning. But
those are tough years.
Before you learn retention on the exhale, you learn retention on the inhale. So you will do your, then inhale, engage, pelvic floor, navel, throat chakra.
I think this morning he said you can't do Uddiyana Bandha on an inhale.
Oh, this is the confusion. It's a light one. So there's Uddiyana Vedana, which he may or may not have talked to you about. So you're not doing a full on the inhale, a full hollowing out like you do in Nauli Kriya.
You're just kind of like.
But you are keeping the lesser one, which means the core is still lifting up in it. Almost more like you're zipping on jeans that are too tight.
So it's not the one that's
You can't
that's
because your
us
lungs
sucking
take
everything
up
up.
that space.
No.
Maybe that's why I'm having such a hard time.
Yeah,
I
because
still
you don't
do
have
that
room
every
for it.
single
Yeah,
time.
you don't have room for it. You do on the exhales. So it's still lightly engaged.
It probably does make sense.
You are letting that hold you up and you're softening around all of those locks as much as you can. The image is often of a swan with its chin tucked as you're there. And you can see the more you can soften around those locks, the more calm and peaceful you can be there.
So, when you're doing the full lock, you don't want to take a big inhale then, right? That was my question this morning.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, okay. So you want like a big inhale to hold? Okay. Because I'm wondering if I did a smaller inhale, if I could actually.
Aren't you inhaling as you're hitting all your locks? Isn't that when the inhale happens?
Yeah, I mean you are, not
Do
to
you
get,
know what
it's
I'm saying?
okay when they happen, but yes, that's ideally the way to do it. It's also okay if you just take a big inhale and then go.
And then lock. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's only after Kapalabhati.
Yes.
Okay.
For now, eventually we would add breath retention. So the reason this is Nadi Shuddhi right now, pranayama isn't, breath work is not true pranayama until there's breath retention. Nadi Shuddhi is not, even though we have it written as pranayama here, it's not technically pranayama until it becomes Nadi Shodhana, which has breath retention. So it's an inhale up, hold, exhale, hold out, inhale, hold, and so on. So breath retention, which is known as kumbhaka, is what really makes something true pranayama. In case you care. Let's talk about your meditation, and then we will go around the room, and everyone's going to say something.
Whatever you want.
All right.
Nothing in particular.
We'll see what that's going to be. Meditation, and remember these times are suggestions, do what works for you. So a suggestion is this month watching the Shakti go up, watching the Shakti line go down. As you do a wave up and a wave down, which means belly, ribs, chest up, and then as we go down, chest, ribs, belly. You might start to see the lotuses at the points where the chakras are. The best you can, see them as white. If they come up as a color, great, but don't try to, and we talked about this last month, don't try to put a color on it. Be like, it's my throat chakra, so it's supposed to be blue. Don't do that. Just let it be white for now, or whatever color it shows up as. If you don't quite see lotuses, if you do see lotuses, they open this way, right? Sometimes they're drawn for aesthetic purposes this way. But you see them with the Shakti going through the center of the lotus. As it strikes the center of the lotus, what do you say to yourself? The bija. Yeah, and you just do one count of it. Yeah, you got it. Eventually you add more counts on, but for now just one.
Wait, was the bija the bumblebee?
No, that's the sound of the chakra. So that's the lam, bam, ram that we did this morning.
Okay.
Is it okay?
I'm so confused, I'm sorry.
That's because you're tired, for one. So we will, I will leave some more time for homework at the end of tomorrow too. And remember, we're gonna do this tomorrow too.
I keep forgetting we have a whole other day.
Yay!
The weekend's not over.
Yeah. Just 1 second. I do want to, before I forget, I posted this, but we're doing joint freeing series tomorrow. So bring, if you want to take notes, bring something to take notes on into the room. Bring this so you can follow the Gayatri mantra unless you want to go learn it tonight. Know that joint freeing series is a very subtle yoga practice. The name is actually Pavanmuktasana, which is, it's energy releasing, which means we are working really more specifically with pranamaya kosha, the energy level, rather than the physical level. So, I mean, literally, this is one of them. Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. Just so you know, you're not going to get a more rigorous asana. Although I will give you a little time for free practice, I hope I will have time to give you 10 minutes of that tomorrow.
So we will practice that in the morning tomorrow?
Instead of our normal practice? Yeah. And that is something you'll be using. I think I wrote March originally, but changed it to April. You have Laura Lance in April, and she works, the physical side of what we're doing with people, with private clients, has a lot to do with joint freeing series. And so you need to have done it once in its entirety before meeting with her. And tomorrow morning's your only chance.
So we're doing that during our sadhana tomorrow.
Yes.
That's going to be our asana practice.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Are we in here again tomorrow?
Yes, but we don't have as many bolsters tomorrow because there's a yin class. And so you have to bring
your
support.
pillows.
Bring
your bag.
Yes.
Austin said something about our taking vodka.
Yes.
I'm not sure.
Oh, thank you for, and I know Rachel was asking that too. So
I will. I got you.
What did he say about it? What do you remember?
He said that at some point, and he said in the near future, I just can't remember when, that we would have to start to really cultivate our own, you know, Ishtige vodka.
It's your image of the divine. And so that might be, it's just something to start thinking about. If you already have one, like I know some of you have, it pops into mind, and you've got that. It is something that you really will start to, we'll weave it into meditation eventually, but just start thinking about it.
It's a personal start to
although
okay.
if you have a picture of it to bring in, or a representation that you want to put at the top of your mat, that is something that can be nice. So, what else on homework?
Like what we talked about yesterday.
Yeah.
Okay. With meditation, can I do the bija sounds about like seeing the lights, the chakra lights? Because that's kind of how I was doing. Because I couldn't really like just to.
I think you could. I mean, It's generally taught where you see the spots first, but I am a big believer in doing what works for you. So.
I just felt like that was helping me to like keep track of like what the chakras were or the red line. Cool.
Yeah. 3-minute exercise before we go. You're going to write down one way in which you will practice patience and or compassion tomorrow.
Uh-oh. Why?
Write down one. No. I just think that
Oh, I meant like tomorrow. Like, are we in for like a big day tomorrow?
Oh, no. I just think it's a good practice to, when we have these long days in here, to kind of review the day and be like, how did I not practice patience or compassion? And how will I do it tomorrow? It's just a way to self-reflect. So take a couple of minutes to do that. This is just for you. I'm not going to make you say
How
it.
to become more patient is the question. Become more patient.
How can you be more patient tomorrow, or compassionate, or both, if they coincide? And it might be with yourself. It might be with each other. It might be with me. It might be with the environment. Snacks left?
You want some?
No, I just am surprised they're not.
Oh.
We put it all away.
Yeah, you said.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know they were out. You put them away? Okay. Awesome. You're done. No, I just
like,
you
eat
just
while
no,
you're
it just
around.
occurred to me. I was like, do they know that they should get those? That's all. I just want to make sure you're
Yes.
comfortable in getting them.
I was like, I have an apple and an orange, and I didn't even open that better.
We ate all morning before you got
Oh,
here.
good. I'm just glad because I was like, oh.
Yeah, I'm like, is this
Good. Well, if you're not quite done with that, just write a word or two so you'll remember where you were going with it. Because, you know, just tomorrow when you're finding yourself going into that space, make a conscious effort to come back to that. Let's, we'll have a specific word of the day today then, and you know what it's going to be.
Can we stand and say?
That's
Instead of sitting, I'm so done with sitting. Can we just stand up and do it? Is that all right?
Yeah.
Instead of sitting.
You forward fold.
I think you can choose what you want to do because our hands are big. We're like adults. So
We're like adults. We're not adults.
We can
We're
reach.
kind of like.
Yeah.
I don't feel like one.
So just for fun and because it was requested, when it comes around to you, you'll just say what your sun sign is, your astrological sign. And if you want to say a second word, you can get to get it out fast.
Wanna wait for Janine?
She's not.
She had to leave early.
Oh, but I got
thank
hers.
you. We know hers. Say hers.
Yeah, I'll say hers. Hers is Leo,
Okay.
and then mine's Sagittarius. That's this one.
Leo,
Cancer.
Virgo,
Capricorn, Aries, Pisces, Scorpio,
Virgo.
Aries,
Sagittarius.
Taurus.
Oh. I'm the only Pisces in our entire
This couldn't be a better group. Just make sure we get out of the room pretty quickly. That's awesome. Thank you for all the great work today. Oh, thank you, Amber.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Thank you.
What's your
Do something nice for your hips tonight. This floor. It's
Amanda.
Enough crap there, Amanda?
No.
That might be that'd be you.
There's sun.
I just have to get some gas. I'll drive the truck.
Here's your ID.
Right? It's this, I believe it's, I'm like, what was her, rising?
I do.
I was like, I'm like rising.
Do you need to ride home?
It's based on the time of the day.
So that I, you know.
Yeah, where do you live?
So like, basically like at the intersection, around the intersection.
But like it's like the time of day and the year is the season. So it's like it's very
Yeah,
specific.
she lives right Nevada and Garden of the Gods. I picked her up today. I don't know if she needs a ride tomorrow, but yeah. I think from the base. Yeah.
Yeah, pull the bottom one out.
Last, I know.
I can get you too.
Did I want to come up that way too? Yeah. I'm Shane Howard.
I'm bad at it. Like I'm learning, but I'm not the best.
Blanket.
How do I stop
Claire know,
this?
what are adjectives for Taurus?
Oh shoot.
Nobody wants to know.
Oh. Let me think about that.
No, that's fine. I felt that.
How do I turn this off, Bope?
There is a button that you click there that tells